Right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We need to end promptly by 10 for the admin committee meeting. Our chairman has spoken and we have listened. So we will try to accomplish that. This is the meeting of the legislative committee. And the first items are informational only, so while we don't have a quorum yet, we can proceed with our informational items. And the first item up is a federal update. We have written reports in our agenda package, but there may be some new information that has happened since the reports were filed, and so our first group is the common group, and we have Gary Hoitzma is on from the common group. So
if I may,
yes,
Chair,
go ahead.
Mayor McCallan is on the line. Just wanted to.
Is
yes.
he,
Is that
is that the person?
That's the mayor.
That little person in that room.
Yes.
Good morning, Mayor McCallan, and Supervisor Rutherford has now arrived as well. So we're just starting, and we are asking the Carmen Group, Gary Hoitzma, for any updates on his report on the federal side. So go ahead, Gary.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just a very quick couple of updates. We try to track the Trump cabinet appointments, and just yesterday, the Senate confirmed Robert Lighthizer to be the U.S. Trade Representative. That completes all the confirmations of the 13 or so Trump cabinet level appointees. And secondly, I just wanted to report that on the sub-cabinet level, the appointments in the administration are very slow in coming compared to previous administrations. And we're trying to keep track of ones that are of special interest. And just to report that this week, the president named a couple of people to the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, one of whom is Neil Chatterjee, who has been the main energy and environment staffer for Senator Mitch McConnell. He's someone that's met with AQMD staff and officials here over the last couple of years as we've had meetings in D.C. So he's there appointed to the FERC commission formally now. So that pretty much completes my update for today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from any of our committee members? Anyone else at the table? Okay, thank you very much, Gary. We'll move on to, and we'll see you next week. To Cassidy and Associates, and I believe Amelia Jenkins is on the line with us. Good morning, Amelia. Can you give us any updates from your report?
Good morning. This is Ryan Mulvanen. I'm standing in for Caleb, and Amelia's on the line as well.
Okay.
We don't have anything additional to report from the written report, but we look forward to seeing everyone next week, and we're working to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
I don't want to get the echo.
Okay, thank you very much for your report and for helping us put together meetings next week. We look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. And Kadish and Associates.
Yes.
Yes, is it?
Mark Kadish is here. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Madam Chair. I will just very briefly underscore two elements of our report, which I think you all saw. The President sign the omnibus legislation funding the rest of FY 2017. And in that, two areas that we've followed, all of us quite closely, obviously, the DERA program was able to get an additional $10 million, so we'll get the increase from $50 million to $60 million, and targeted airshed grant program we'll also get an additional $10 million, so we'll receive $30 million as opposed to last year's $20 million. So those were good, I think, good adds for us. And the timing of your trip next week is wonderful in the sense that we expect the president's budget will come out the third week in May. And so talking about these and other programs that we care about, I think a good timing is Congress turns to the FY 2018 appropriations process. So that's really our report, but we're also happy to take questions.
Great, thank you very much. We're very pleased about the DERA and airshed funding because we thought that was even threatened and we might not get anything. So to have it up $10 million is really good news. So we thank our legislators for doing that. Next we'll go to to Jacob Moss from Gonzalez and Quintana. I think we'll come back to Gonzalez and Sons. Anyway, Jacob, are you online and you have any updates for us?
I am. Good morning, Madam Chair and members. I too will keep this brief. Just a quick update about the May revise. The January budget had forecast revenue declines from the previous year of about $5.8 billion, but because of a surge in the stock market, which increased some revenues, the forecast now reflects only a $3.3 billion drop from the 2016 budget forecast. So still a constrained budget. They describe it as being more constrained than in any year since 2012, but not as bad as we thought in January. And beyond that, I don't know that there's much new to add to my report.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's good news, always, that we have more money than we thought.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to come back to Gonzalez and Sons because we hear that Paul is on a conference call and unexpectedly and can't join us. Good morning, Dr. Parker. I'm glad to have you joining us as well.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll move on to our recommended positions on state and federal bills. So the first one is AB 378, and I have Philip Crabb who's going to present on this one. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. AB 378 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia would extend CARB's cap and trade authority to 2030, prohibits a facility from increasing its annual greenhouse gas emissions compared to its 2014-2016 average, authorizes CARB to adopt no trade zones or facility-specific declining GHG limits, and requires CARB to adopt air pollutant emission standards that industrial facilities must meet to receive allowances after 2020, or free allowances after 2020. Generally, this bill is in line with the district's policy and priorities regarding reducing greenhouse gases and criteria pollutants and toxic emissions within the South Coast region. However, staff has concerns about the bill as recently amended. There is possibly a duplication of effort created by the bill between CARB and local air districts in terms of regulating local criteria pollutant and toxic emission pollution sources. Also, expertise for regulating these types of local stationary sources of pollution resides with the local air districts. Additionally, CARB does not have the staff or resources to do such a duplicative effort. Although greenhouse gases and criteria pollutant emission reductions are often linked and money should be spent to enhance co-benefits and reduce both simultaneously, there's a concern that this bill too closely intertwines the cap and trade system with criteria pollutant and toxic emission regulations. Additionally, there is previously authorized by the board, staff would seek to add provisions to this cap and trade reauthorization bill to require at least 20% of total allocated annual greenhouse gas reduction fund monies to be distributed in severe and extreme non-attainment areas for ozone, and that would be used basically to maximize criteria and toxic emission reduction co-benefits, mostly in lines with deployment and development of near zero and zero emission heavy duty vehicles, off-road equipment, and federal sources. So overall, staff recommends a work with author position on this bill.
Thank you, Philip. Are there any comments or further discussion on this? I think that is the correct position. There are some issues I think we need to work through. And so, I would be very supportive of this position. How many capital bills are out there? There's a number of them out there that are.
Right, I was thinking 2 to 3 at this point. AB 151 got modified slightly to not necessarily be a reauthorization bill at this point, but there's 2 to 3, and the governor's office may end up sponsoring another bill as well. So there'll be a grand kind of negotiation at the end of the year, I think, to work this all
So
out.
this is just one of them. We should keep our eye probably on all of them before we fall in place on any particular one.
Absolutely.
Okay. See,
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, yes, Larry, Councilman Mayor, please go ahead.
I was, just a comment, yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, we visited a place where they were using fuel cell technology to replace diesel generation or whatever, and it emits CO2, which is a greenhouse gas. The part there that says prohibit ARB from permitting a facility to increase its annual GHG emissions compared to the average of emissions reported for 2014, 2016 seems to go against the idea of replacing something that's a criteria pollutant with something that's generating greenhouse gases.
Hey, Mayor McCallum, it's Matt. I'm on the side of the peanut gallery, but for the fuel cell installations, because they're so much more efficient, you're actually reducing CO2 emissions. So
Yeah, but they're replacing something that generates pollutants.
So in the case for the
My
hospital,
concern,
I'm sorry.
pardon?
In the case for the
Well,
hospital,
I'm just, go ahead.
in the case for the hospital, they're displacing grid generation, which is typically 35 to 40% efficient, and then the fuel cell itself was 40 to 60%. They were saying it was very, very much higher efficiency, and so they're reducing the CO2 in that case.
Okay, is that, yeah, I understood that too, that compared to what they had before they installed the fuel cells, it's a vast improvement, even though, they're still generating some greenhouse gases and some pollutants. It's still much better than the prior existing installations that they were using. Any other comments from anybody? I will say that's well worth visiting. Very interesting what they've done. It was a hospital where Bloom Energy had installed fuel cells to provide electricity for their facility, and this operation is primarily looking at hospitals. Although they had a bunch of installations all over California. And so it was pretty interesting to see how this can be used, this new technology. So,
Madam Chair, if I could just, the position on work with author is one that we think that this bill is fairly complicated, the way that it involves ARB in reviewing a lot of the things that the local districts have done. And so I can share with you that there were some members of CAPCOA that wanted to outright oppose this. We're also sensitive to this bill because of the authors working with us on our other bill, 1132. So we want to work very closely because we think that there's a large potential for confusion in terms of the roles of the districts and the role of the ARB and what pollutants are regulated and how they're regulated. So I just wanted to add that.
thank you. That was my impression as well, that now they're blurring the lines between what local air districts do and what Air Resources Board does. And while we want to work together, we want to make sure that everybody understands who's doing what.
Madam Chair,
So, yes, Dr. Parker.
I think sometimes that I'd like to, just for the record, to say that meeting and working with the author oftentimes don't necessarily mean that we're agreeing, that what we're trying to do is to say that get some changes made that would probably be more in keeping with what our mission and goals are. And even though if the bill got through, maybe it will get through with some changes that would make it less onerous than what it is. So I think sometimes if we say we're not going to work with the author, what we're really doing is conceding that whatever theirs may be, that they would basically go forward and try to do whatever it may be. Maybe what we want to do is to say the whole thing should be changed, that it shouldn't even be that way at all. But I think that's a position that when staff comes before us, should be able to articulate, as Mr. Nastor has recently stated, that certainly it has some things in it that we don't like. But that's why we're really talking about working with them to get those changed. And then after that is done, we can then take a definitive position of support or denial once that bill has gotten through the committee with or without those changes that we have and on its way to a more, kind of robust, should say, vote by the Assembly or the Senate, whichever one is basically considering it.
Thank you, and I'll look for a motion at this time to adopt the position to work with the author.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion from Supervisor Rutherford. Do I hear a second? Mayor McGowan. And we need to take a roll call vote, so Jeanette, I think you're responsible.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallum,
Yes?
Dr. Parker,
Aye.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0.
Okay. The order will be to go to the Gonzalez report after we've gone through all the bills that are in front of us today. So just to keep you apprised of how we're going to proceed. The next bill is AB 890, and again, Philip Crab is going to present on this. Philip, go ahead.
Yes. So AB 890 by Assemblymember Medina. This bill was actually just very recently amended and came into print as of yesterday. So there are substantive changes to what is been provided in the packet. Copies of the new bill have been made available for this meeting. Staff has reviewed the bill and feel that the changes are still consistent with the prior intent of the bill. The amended 890 would require the city attorney or county council to determine within 15 days after a proposed initiative measure is filed to determine whether the measure constitutes a project proposing specific activity that would eliminate discretionary land use approval for future development. If the city attorney or county council makes the determination that the measure constitutes such a project, the bill would require the city or county to comply with the requirements of SCAQMD. Within 5 days of completing the SCAQMD process, the bill would require the election officials to furnish to the proponents of the proposed measure an environmental summary of the measure. The bill would establish that the provision of the environmental summary to the proponent of the proposing measure constitutes approval of the project for purposes of SCAQMD. The bill would then require the governing body to submit the proposed ordinance without alteration to the voters at a special election. The voter states that unfortunately the SCAQMD review process has been increasingly undermined by California's initiative process. Some developers are avoiding SCAQMD and other public review for proposed projects by qualifying a local measure for approval. Without a proper environmental review or mitigation plan, this results in significant lasting negative impacts on communities. This bill would help protect public health within the South Coast region by reducing the number of developments that are detrimental to air quality and that seek to obtain a SCAQMD exemption. So overall, staff recommends a support position on this bill.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this bill? Yes, go ahead.
Does it maintain our, I'm sorry, I have a question.
All right, go ahead, Dr.
Does it maintain the air quality district's ability to be able to review each one of the SCAQMD events that would impact the air quality in the region in which you would have? I have not read the changes. I read the ones that were there. But is that provision itself?
Dr. Parker, this bill does not adversely affect the Air District's ability to review SCAQMD documents. In fact, it requires SCAQMD documents in circumstances which in the past have not been subject to SCAQMD because they've gone directly to an initiative. So I would say it furthers our ability to implement SCAQMD.
Thank you. Supervisor Rutherford, go ahead.
both my county individually and CSAC as a whole has a very strong position against changes to land use authority locally, so I'll need to oppose this.
Oh, you think this usurps your land use authority? Okay. All right, okay, that's interesting. Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Well, I have a question relative to what Supervisor Rutherford just stated. And I understand that it may be a total board position, a board's position. But to the extent itself, does this bill take any rights away from the local area as it relates to how you have to go about CEQA, doing CEQA analysis?
I'm not sure, especially with the amendments today, how that applies. I'm representing the position my board has taken in our legislative platform and CSAC as a whole that counties do not like what's been proposed. Whether that changes with the amendments, I can't say. I've only had them for a few minutes.
So let me ask Phyllis to respond to that. How does it change local authority? There is, a way that happens, so Philip can explain that.
So-
Or maybe Barbara can explain it.
Barbara,
yeah.
maybe you could also explain the way it is now.
Normally, local government land use projects are subject to the California Environmental Quality Act analysis. And in recent years, they have been circumstances in which a project proponent, there was one that was at Walmart that went to the California Supreme Court, and the World Logistics Center being an example as well, where projects were approved by a initiative which was circulated and adopted by the voters after being circulated by the project proponents. And in that case, the Supreme Court held that the initiative process was so rapid that it didn't contemplate that CEQA would be complied with before the measure could go on the ballot. So project proponents began to use this as a method of avoiding CEQA review, and that was one of the issues that was involved in our prior litigation regarding the World Logistics Center. What this bill would do would say that the local agency's legal counsel needs to determine whether the project is of a type that would preclude future land use approvals and therefore future CEQA analysis, and if so, then require the CEQA analysis to be done now before the project goes on the ballot. So in one way, it strengthens the local government's ability, because in the past, a project proponent could put something directly on the ballot and get it adopted, even though the city council might have not approved it. On the other hand, if the city council itself wanted to put something on the initiative ballot without undergoing CEQA, they won't be any longer able to do that. So I think it had both a strengthening aspect on local government power as well as a limiting aspect if in fact the city council were trying to adopt a project without undergoing CEQA.
So it's kind of interesting. That's why I was a little surprised at Supervisor Rutherford saying she thought it eroded local control, because it actually does both.
It may have been the prior
There are limitations, and then there are, local land use authority has always been for the local authority to do a CEQA analysis when of any project comes before it. But now there's two sides to this thing. So, and you say CSAC.
Yes, CSAC is
opposes this. That's interesting. That CSAC, as the League of Cities taking the position.
I don't know about League of Cities.
Okay.
Mayor
McCallum.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mayor McCallum.
the staff report says the League of Cities opposes it.
The League of Cities opposes it also. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay.
League of California Cities opposes it.
So, what position does the committee want to take on this? I think from your district viewpoint, we'd like to see CEQA analysis so we can analyze the impact on air quality. That's would be why this body would support. Is that right, Philip?
Yes.
I mean, we looked at the World Logistics Center and how they circumvented any SQL analysis of air quality, and you know, that was an issue. So now this matter is before us. Yes.
Madam Chair, do we know why the League of Cities opposing this, Philip? Do you know?
Well, I imagine for the same reason that CSAC is opposing it, is it does on one side usurp local authority or restricts local authority. I think that may be the way to
Well,
say.
and the additional reasons that I have here are unique to counties, imposes significant mandates on county elections officials and planning departments, and the sense that it is potentially unconstitutional.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think, excuse
Go
me,
ahead.
if I might speak, we actually, when we looked at this bill, we had a concern that it might run afoul of the Constitution because the initial version of the bill specified certain projects that could not be subjected to initiative. And that may have been a conflict with the reserve power of initiative for the local voters. In fact, this revised version may have been proposed to address exactly that concern because it no longer means that anything, tries to say that anything cannot go to initiative. Instead, it just says before going to initiative, it needs to undergo CEQA. So I think the author may be trying to address exactly the concern that the supervisor mentioned.
Okay, so one thing, good morning Supervisor Nelson. Thank you for joining us. We're discussing AB 890 right now.
Yes.
It might be that we would prefer to continue to monitor this and not take a position on it to see whether some of these issues can be cleared up. Can we
want to oppose it?
With the author to preserve our air quality issues and what our concerns are with air quality, but also not run afoul of local authority as well. So what
I think that's a good idea. It
I-
gives me a chance to go back and get analysis of the new bill and find out if there's changes in
Right,
positions.
there are recent changes.
Bring it back next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So is that a motion, Supervisor?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to monitor this bill, and I'll second that motion, and we'll need a roll call vote from Jeanette. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallum,
Yes.
Dr. Parker,
Yes.
Supervisor Nelson, want to vote?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the debate. I understand the monitor. I'd be a no. I think we should oppose this.
Okay. Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
motion passes 4-1.
Okay. The next one is AB 1073, and Monica Kim is here this morning to present.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, committee members. AB 1073 is by Eduardo Garcia, and it would extend the deadline requiring CARB to allocate no less than 20% of available funding of the California Clean Truck, Bus, and Off-Road Vehicle and Equipment Technology Program to support the early commercial deployment of existing zero and near zero emission heavy-duty truck technology. Currently, the requirement is slated to sunset on January 1st, 2018, and this bill would extend this deadline to January 1st, 2023. The bill is in line with SCAQMD's efforts to reduce emissions from heavy-duty vehicles by supporting the early commercial deployment of existing zero and near zero emission technology, and staff recommends a support position on this bill.
Thank you. Any questions? So I would recommend support, just from my opinion. We have a lot of small truck fleet owners. That is one of the issues in California, and we need to help them convert to the cleaner technologies. Most of them small fleets, they don't have a lot of resources to spend on this conversion to the cleaner technology. There's a real need for this, and as we know, the mobile sources are our biggest contributors to our pollution problem, so I would be in favor of extending that sunset from 2018 to 2023. Others have any comments about this bill?
I would just second your motion to approve.
Okay, I guess that was my motion. Thank you. And any more comments? We'll go for a roll call vote.
Mayor Pro Tem McCallum,
Yes.
Supervisor Nelson,
Yes.
Dr. Parker,
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
And our next bill is AB 1647. Mark Carroll will present. Deals with petroleum refineries, air monitoring systems.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. AB 1647 from Assemblymember Marsucci would require air districts to require petroleum refineries to install a community air monitoring system and a fence line monitoring system. And refineries must collect real-time data, maintain records, and make the data available to the public. This bill is focused on, or as a result of recent developments in technology that have shown that emissions from such refineries may be in excess of the amounts being reported than those under prior methods. So the bill may reduce harmful toxic emissions. And in particular, this bill may protect disadvantaged communities throughout the South Coast region. However, we are already in the process of rulemaking on something very similar, community and fence line monitoring. And so there's concerns that as that rulemaking goes forward, there's a stakeholder process involved in that, and we would, staff is concerned that that won't be preserved. In addition, there's terminology in the bill that is ambiguous and so, which needs clarification. So staff is recommending that the that we work with the author to address these and any other concerns, and not take a formal support position on this bill at this time.
Okay, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could just add.
Madam Chair.
Just a moment, the executive officer would like to speak. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to add that as we heard at the investigation hearing on the refinery, Torrance Refinery, the state is actually in the process of developing guidance for a lot of the refinery issues. And one of those issues is the overall monitoring of refineries. Jack Broadbent and I, Jack Broadbent of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and I pushed back on ARB because ARB was looking at developing a regulatory perspective. And the point that we made is that, first off, in Bay Area, they're already doing perimeter monitoring, and they're actually ahead of where a lot of the others are. But there's only 4 districts in the entire state. And so for the state to develop a regulatory program, when we've already developed and we're moving forward, we didn't feel was appropriate. So this sort of seems to be another statewide approach. I would just say there's obviously concerns that we have. We want to work with the author, but we think that we're moving pretty aggressively in this area. We think that we're doing the kind of leadership that needs to be demonstrated. So that's why we want to work with the author to make sure that the work that we've invested thus far and the work of other districts stays on track.
Okay, and Mayor McCallum, did you want to speak? I think it was you.
Dr. Parker.
Or Dr. Parker. Go ahead, Dr. Parker.
Well, I was going to parallel what Sinastri stated. I believe it's incumbent upon us to be able to deal with the issues that are germane for these very large industries in our region, that instead of just being limited to a state law that is directly related to a particular situation, I think we should have broader discretion so that we can, among ourselves, among the governing board members, have a discussion on to exactly what our rulemaking should be in this regard. I know that we have fence line monitors at many of the refineries now, and we're looking at some of the very less expensive devices in order to do that. I have not had a refinery, being the chairman itself of our refinery committee, that have really opposed to being able to have fence line monitoring. And the means and methods by which we employ to accomplish that, I think should really be a local effort. And I think that having staff to work with the author of this bill and giving us that same discretion would be a very wise thing, even though that we have stated that, but I thought it would be going a little even further in saying that it should really be a kind of a local decision, because we have 4, as you stated, boards, air boards throughout the state. And the conditions itself, we have 6 refineries in our area. How many is in the Bay Area, Mr. Nastri?
Is it about 7? 7, it's what we think.
7.
Yeah.
So really, these 2 districts have the, 95% of all the refineries throughout the state. And to have that to basically be taken directly out of our hands, I don't think it really would be in our best interest, but that's my position.
Any other comments? A motion on this?
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
don't we have the authority that this bill is trying to give us already?
Executive officer has to be, we're working on that, right?
We're doing it right now, so I would say, yes, we have the authority to do what they're recommending, at least part of it.
So why is the bill necessary if the major air districts that have all of the refineries, most of them in the state, doing it already? Why is the bill necessary?
Let me answer that. Elmer Asucci is my assembly representative, and the PBF refinery is squarely in his district. And so there is motivation from this assemblyman to assure the community that, he's aware of this and we are doing something about it. I think, I've sat down with Assemblyman Marisucci on some of these issues, and I would say let's put the author on this. I think it's important that we're consistent in what happens in the state bill with whatever we do, but he's been very interested in the refinery issue, primarily because of what's happening at PBF. So that kind of explains the political motivation there. So anyway, that I would recommend we work with him on this. That's my motion. I'll make the motion, I guess. Would anybody be willing to second that?
I'll second it.
And Jeanette, any further comments about this? Then Jeanette, would you go ahead and do the roll call?
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem McKellen?
Yes.
Supervisor Nelson?
Yes.
Dr. Parker?
Yes.
Supervisor Rutherford?
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next thing is Will on the phone now? Paul on the phone?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am. Good morning.
Good morning,
Can you hear me
Paul.
okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to ask whether you have any updates on your written report that you've given to us, and let us know what's happening up in Sacramento.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one very brief update. I just wanted to let the committee know SB 100, the Pro Tem's 100% renewable energy by 2045, did pass out of the Senate Energy and Utilities Committee on Tuesday on an 8-2 vote. So that bill is moving forward, and we'll continue to keep the committee apprised as it progresses. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about what might be occurring?
Yeah.
In Sacramento? Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate that. Next, we have a report from the Home Rule Advisory Group. That's a written report in your agenda packet. Is there any other business that a member of this body, the staff, or anybody would like to bring forward at this time? Yes, Executive Officer Nestor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out AB 302 was the fleet rule, and Barbara, maybe you could talk about the fate of that.
Yes, this bill was originally a gut and amend that was forwarded by Assemblymember Mike Gibson. Last Friday at the Governing Board meeting, board voted to support that bill. Philip and I and Dean Saito, who's our fleet rules manager, went to Sacramento, worked with our Sacramento lobbyists as well as the folks from Clean Energy and the Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition that were sponsoring the bill. But the chairman of the Transportation Committee decided to recommend a no on the bill, and so Assemblymember Gibson, in counting votes, decided it would be more prudent to take the bill off calendar and turn it into a two-year bill to begin working on some of the opposition. Perhaps more time would be able to resolve the concerns. The principal opposition was from the California Trucking Association, which really we don't think their members are very much affected at all, especially during the negotiations with them. We had agreed to narrow the scope of the bill basically to what is the types of fleets currently covered by our fleet rules as well as general governmental fleets, but it wasn't sufficient to remove opposition and therefore not sufficient to allow a positive vote to go forward at the committee.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess we can work with the California Trucking Association on this. Any other matters to bring forward at this time?
Sure, just this is Derek Altori. Just want to obviously let the committee members know you're getting your updates on the schedule for DC next week. We have a full schedule. We're meeting with administration as well as members of the Senate and the House next week, and we look forward to it, and it'll be a fruitful trip next week.
I would just add one item, Derek, and that is, I'm not sure at the evening, but I think it's Tuesday evening. There's an event with the transportation agencies. Mark, maybe you could elaborate on that?
It's the Coalition on Gateways and Transportation Corridors, CAGET, which a number of transportation agencies and the ports are members of, SCAG, OCTA, Ports of LA, Ports of Long Beach. And so they're having a reception that's open and available for anyone to attend. And since the reception is being hosted by the Port of Long Beach and Port of LA, we thought we would let all the members who are attending go, and so some of the staff will be attending, and we'll place it on the calendar as an optional event.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will mention that anyone who's flying out of LAX on Monday, be careful. They're doing a complete turnaround of their terminals. Delta is moving from 5 and 6 over to terminals 2 and 3, and there's likely to be quite a lot of disruption. So you need to make sure before you get to the airport to check and see what gate you're at. Check with your airline to see where you will actually be, and maybe leave additional time to get to your gate, because it's likely to be a bit of a mess.
So there was actually on the news this morning. I guess the move is already going on, and
starts tonight.
And the boarding pass that they got still listed the old terminal instead of the new terminal. So
right. So you actually need to call the airline the day you're traveling and find out where you're supposed to go. So just a warning for everybody.
We could do a local plug and say fly out of Ontario or Orange County.
Right. Right. Because some people are on flights that leave at 8 o'clock Monday morning. So that's likely to be pretty iffy, I would think. You know, there'll be plenty of time to get there at 6.
Come to Ontario, fly.
Madam Chair, this morning they said they recommend 3 hours ahead of time for domestic flights.
So that means
4 hours for international
Ontario,
flights.
10:40. Yeah.
So
You can probably cruise in about 9:40 and be just fine.
Fly from Ontario to LAX.
It's a serious circumstance. There were 50 flights delayed this morning already.
Oh my gosh. And they haven't even started moving yet. Starting tonight, it's going to be working at night the next 3 nights.
One
Okay.
plug for Orange County, you can drive up, have your car parked, go through TSA in less than 5 minutes and be at the gate.
Oh, my gosh.
Orange County.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Maybe not this one.
So the
Sitting
3
right
hours.
here. I was channeling Supervisor Nelson.
He's farther
Yeah.
away.
Right.
Ontario, it's like 4 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, all right, and next on the agenda is public comment. Anyone from the audience want to comment? No. Okay. So that will end our meeting, and we have 10 minutes to spare. Do you want to keep talking?
We'll get ready so we can start right at 10.
Okay, so this
The
meeting is adjourned until Friday, June 9th.